over to the penthouses with you on May 21st?
I went to the penthouses with Jerry Judge and Anbet, and I had asked them on the just in case, please pay particular attention and stay as close to the door, stay at the door, because if you hear anything, if you hear screaming, you got to get in there. So leave the door unlocked and spring in there if you hear something.
Why did you want them to be able to get into the penthouse quickly if they heard anything?
Just based on my past experiences with Miss Heard, when you say something that she either didn't agree with or swore up and down that it was a complete falsity and there was something wrong with me, I'm crazy, and the escalation. If anything was going to start to escalate, I did not want to be there. So I had them waiting by the door to get in there in case anything went down.
So when you walked into the penthouse, what did you see?
When I first walked into the penthouses, you walk in and then make a left. And then you're in the kitchen area. And then beyond that was the living room. I saw Miss Heard sitting there on the couch. And I went over to talk. I went and sat down on the couch. She was sitting on, the couch was kind of a square, or a half square, She was sitting on one side of the couch, I was sitting on the other. And so at that point, she was riled, of course. And I went upstairs to gather belongings. When I came back downstairs, she was on the phone with Io Tillett. Right. I went over and I said, let me talk to her. I grabbed the phone and I said to Io, you can have her now. She's yours. She's all yours. Right? And then I took the phone and I just bang like that onto that side of the couch was 8 feet long. The other side of the couch was about 6 feet long. I flopped it onto the couch and I was walking towards the kitchen to exit, and then suddenly Rocky Pennington ran in to the penthouse and started, leave her alone, Johnny, leave her alone. And I was by the refrigerator at this point. I was 20 feet away.
Where was Miss Heard at that time?
She was still sitting on the couch. And that's when the screaming, the screaming started with, like, again, I'm 20 feet away. She's still got Io on the phone. She's got Rocky there. Stop hitting me, Johnny, she's screaming in her best freaked out, upset voice, high-pitched. Stop hitting me, stop hitting me. Jerry Judge and Anbet entered the room. And as they entered the room, and she was quite surprised to see them, she said, "That's the last time you'll ever hit me. That's the last time you'll ever do that to me." And again, I'm a good 20 feet away by the fridge. And then Jerry said, "Boss, I think we should just leave." And then we left. That was the last time I saw Miss Heard.
Okay. Who's Amber? You? Okay. And Johnny? Is definitely not here. He's not here? Okay. Probably like 2 hours ago. Okay. Yeah. Alright, cool. Everything's all good then? Alright. Well, if you guys need anything else, just call us back. You have a good night.
Now, I'm going to take you to May 21, 2016, and I'd like you to describe for the jury what took place that evening in connection with Mr. Depp.
Johnny and I had not seen each other for the better part of a month, or about a month. I was traveling. I had just shot a campaign in Italy. I spoke to him around that time when I was in Italy. I had gotten a phone. My parents got a hold of me. After I spoke to my parents, I had communicated with Johnny. On that phone call, I didn't know what was going on with him for those weeks. With his sobriety, I didn't know where his state was. I didn't know what state he was in. And when I spoke to him, he was saying what I can only he was going on about scientists and DNA and feces.
Ooh,
That he
feces.
had some scientific analysis done and DNA analysis done, and that as soon as I heard about this feces, he thought that was a prank, and he was going on about all the scientists that he had conferred about the DNA results with. Just thought he was out of his mind, and thought clearly the drinking and the drugs are not getting better. Clearly the delusions aren't better. So
Action calls for speculation.
It's not absolute the truth of the matter. We're talking about what her sustained objection.
Yeah.
Please continue.
So I hung up from that phone call, assuming that, and then spoke to him once my parents got a hold of me to tell me about Betty Sue. We made a plan, Johnny and I, for him to come over. He said he really needed his wife. He had lost his mother and he missed his wife. He really needed his wife. He said it over and over again. I felt torn. I felt conflicted. I didn't think, obviously, the situation hadn't gotten better with Johnny mentally, and I was afraid that all the work and progress and distance I had finally got on the relationship for the first time. I had a month of distance on it, I didn't want that to be undone, but I also wanted to be, I was affected by the fact that his mother had passed. So he said he wanted to come over and talk about that, and he said he needed his wife, and we made a plan. We made a plan for him to come over during the day, thinking that might mitigate the amount that he would be drinking. Night is a little bit more dangerous. And in the early evening hours, I get a text from him that he's almost there, or that he's there. I think it was around 7:15 or so. And he came over, and we sat on the couch, and at first it was relatively peaceful. I mean, I could tell he was inebriated, but makes sense. In my head, it made sense. He wasn't like incoherent. It was peaceful. And then he starts talking about the feces again, and this prank that he said one of my friends had left for him in my bed that he wasn't going to be at. And I tried to point out how that didn't make any sense. I'm not even going to be there. I wasn't there. And my friends wouldn't do that. That's not something a bunch of 30-year-old women think is funny. What is he talking about? And he just kept going on and on about it. So I text my friend that it's
Objection, hearsay.
Don't tell the jury what you texted your friend, but go to the next thing. What did you do next?
I called my friend thinking that it would quell this, what I could only see as a delusion. I thought it was just a delusion he was having. And I thought, oh, I'll hopefully, quell this by calling my friend to if he hears my friend say that didn't happen.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
It's not out for to prove the truth of it. Thank you. Please continue.
So I thought if I could get my friend on the phone to prove that this didn't happen, we could move on and talk about the issues that we should be talking about. Our marriage was over and falling apart in front of our eyes. We hadn't seen each other for a month, and his mom had just passed. I couldn't believe he wanted to talk about feces. So I call this friend thinking that we'll take care of it. The friend doesn't answer. I call another friend who is someone else he claimed. I don't know how both people did this, but he was claiming that this person was responsible. So I called that person. And that person is on speakerphone. And I
Tell
say,
us who that person is.
Io.
Io, tell it right?
Io, tell it right.
Okay. And then you put him
Io,
on
tell it
speakerphone
right.
with
Her
Johnny.
name is Io,
Right in
tell
front
it
of
right.
Johnny.
Okay. And what happened next?
That's like a joke.
I
name.
allowed for an opportunity for Io to say why this is impossible.
Objection,
It's
hearsay.
not offered to prove the truth of the matter, is asserted, Your Honor. It's explaining the context that leads to the next acts.
Your Honor, it is being offered
We're
to
not
prove that.
here. We're not here about whether Io.
I'll sustain
on
the
the back.
objection. Next question.
All right.
Get wrecked, Elaine.
All right. So Io is talking. You can't tell us what he said. Okay.
Objection,
He's
Your
talking,
Honor.
correct?
May we approach?
Okay.
It just made Johnny madder. He got more upset, grabbed the phone, and started screaming at Io. He just started screaming at the top of his lungs, said, "You dyke bitch, you don't know what you're talking," just screaming expletives, insulting names, and telling Io that he can have me and, fuck off, and just screaming at him. It's best I can describe it without getting into the details. He tosses the phone, down on the couch and heads upstairs. I pick up the phone and try to, apologize for the fact that my husband at the time just screamed at my friend on a cold call. I didn't want Io to think that's why I had called Io, to just be screamed at and blamed for something that sounded crazy. For lack of a better explanation, it sounded crazy. Io said something to me on speakerphone, and reminded me I wasn't safe.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Your Honor, it's not offered to prove the truth of the matter. It's to show what caused Mr. Depp to be set off and come back. I mean, it's not offered to prove the truth of what he's saying. It's not hearsay. In that
I'll overrule the
nature.
objection. Go ahead.
Thank you. Please tell us what Io said and what then happened with Mr. Depp.
Io said, Amber, get out of the house. Get out of the house now. You're not safe. Get out of that house. Io had been there after the cleanup or for the cleanup after December 15th, 2015 incident. And had
Objection,
washed
Your Honor,
blood out of my
non-responsive.
pillowcases.
All right.
I think she can provide the
I'll
context.
sustain the objection. Next question.
Okay. So please continue.
Johnny hears this when he's on the stairs. He made it up one flight of stairs, heard this, turned around, came bolting down the stairs, grabbed the phone from my hand, and really started screaming this time, lit into Io, called Io every imaginable horrible name that you can say to a LGBTQIA person, for one, and any person, any human being ever. I mean, just screamed at Io some really nasty stuff. And when he was done, he says, you want to have my woman now. You want to have my bitch. You can have, you take her, you can have her. And he, with that, picks up, just pulls his arm back with the phone and throws it at my face. Hit me right in it felt like my eye.
Oh, really?
I put my head in my hands and immediately start crying. I said, you hit me with the phone. Johnny, you hit me. And I'm sitting on the couch. I didn't even have time to react, I didn't even have time to put my hands up. I was still sitting cross-legged in my socks on the couch. And I haven't seen him for a month. And several times now that I've seen him, he's hit me. And I didn't even have time to react to this. He comes over to me as I'm crying, and he does that taunting thing to me. He says, "Oh yeah, I hit you, huh? I hit you, yeah." And he just feels like whacks me on top of my head. Just this heavy ringed hand landed on top of my skull, grabs me by the hair, yanks me up off the couch. I'm struggling to stand up. And I don't know if he was intending to hit me in the face or if he was just trying to grab my face, but he was making this gesture around my face to try to expose my face to him. And he was like, yeah, let me see how bad I hurt you. Let me see it. Let me see how bad I hurt you this time. What if I pull your hair back? What if I pull your hair back? And he yanks my hair back. I'm trying to prevent him from landing the blows to my face. I'm trying to prevent my face from being exposed. And I just remember this mocking taunt he was doing with me as he is yanking me around the room.
Just flying around the room.
I hear my friend come into the room. I hear her. Johnny hears her too. He lets go of me and turns. And
Just tell the jury who your friend is.
Raquel, my best friend at the time, who lived in the neighboring apartment, she came in, and Johnny moved towards her, and she ran towards me. Johnny looked at her, looked at me. I retreated to the only place I had to go, which is the corner room where the couch was. I retreated kind of to the couch, and Raquel and Johnny both ran up to me. Raquel got in front of Johnny. She kind of managed to get right in front of him, in between he and I. And I'll never forget it. Just very slowly, calm, in just a very slow but very concentrated, very controlled, slow way. Just put both of her arms, her hands up like this, and like I've seen people do with horses. That's what it reminded me of. She just went, no.
No.
Johnny,
No.
no. And
Johnny,
she just got
no.
in front of us, in between us, put both of her palms out. Johnny kind of squared off to her, ran into her arms,
Raquel
and she just
Pennington
repeated
a
herself very
professional
slowly,
fighter?
very calmly, very directly. He hit both of her arms off of his chest like that and barreled towards me. I instinctively curl up on the couch, and I just feel her arms come around me, next to me. She was sitting on my left next to me on the couch. I just feel her arms around me. And I'm just looking down at the carpet, feeling her arms. And that's when Johnny, who I can see partially and
It's a
hear,
different
is
Raquel
right in front of me.
Pennington?
And he's
Okay.
screaming at me to get the fuck up. Amber, get the fuck up. Amber, get the fuck up. Amber, get the fuck up. And every single time he said it, he's screaming it louder and louder and louder. I think he screamed it probably about 10 times, so loudly.
So loud.
The next thing I hear is boss, boss. And I realize that his 2 security guards had come into the apartment after Raquel. I see them and hear them, and Johnny turns to them, and I see Jerry say, boss, boss. And I get up off the couch and I say to Jerry,
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Not offered to prove the truth of the matter.
It is
asserted
offered
in
to
all.
prove
I'll
the truth of the
sustain
matter.
objection.
All right.
Next one.
So don't tell us what you said to Jerry, just what happened next.
Jerry, he was beating me. Not offered to prove she was beating
then
me.
they tell him something. And he picks up the bottle that I guess he walked in with. It was a
This is
Magnum.
Mr. Depp or Jerry?
I'm sorry, Johnny.
Okay.
And starts smashing things off the nightstand, the coffee table, starts screaming. And they kind of, I feel them kind of corral him. I'm not making direct eye contact, but I can kind of just sense and feel and sound and hear things smashing as he exits the apartment, kind of knocking things off the countertops and breaking things on the way. I realize he's punching something. I assume it was the picture because it broke right after he walked past it. And he leaves that apartment. I hear him in the hallway, still screaming. I hear more doors opening, more racket. Eventually, Josh, Raquel's husband, comes into the room and brings me to safety, brings Raquel and I to safety in their apartment. And that's where I stayed for the next few hours.
So who called the police?
I believe it was
Objection calls for
Io.
speculation.
Your Honor, this is, we have to have the context here of somebody called the police, because then the police come. So I think we have to put, it's not offered again to prove the truth of the matter asserted. It's
not the
just
objection.
who called the police.
Your Honor, the objection is not hearsay. It's speculation.
Do you know who called the police?
Yes, I do now.
I'll sustain the objection.
All
Next
right.
question.
Did you have were you present when there was a discussion about calling 911?
Objection hearsay.
Objection calls for hearsay.
I'm asking if she was
I'll
present.
sustain the objection. Next question.
You're going to call for
Did
hearsay.
you call 911?
No.
Okay. Did Rocky call 911?
Objection calls for speculation.
Do you know whether Rocky called 911?
I do know whether she did.
And did
She did not.
Okay. All right. So what happens, when did you learn that the police had been called?
Iron that tie, Ben. Goodness gracious.
Roughly an hour, at some point shortly after Johnny and his security guards left.
And what did you do as a result of knowing that the police were coming?
I felt panicked. I
Sat down and
didn't know what
decided
to
not to
do,
tell him anything.
because I didn't know what they were going to do when they saw the state of the place. He'd also smashed up the other apartment where I kept all my things. So I didn't know what they were going to do. And I panicked. I called the only lawyer I have, which is my entertainment lawyer. He does like my movie contracts and stuff. and I asked him for advice.
And then what, without telling what he said, what happened next?
I called a domestic relations attorney after that conversation.
And had you known this domestic relations attorney before then?
No, I did not.
Did you get that name from your entertainment attorney?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And when you called the domestic relations attorney, without saying what she said, what did you do as a result?
I told the police officers who arrived that I would not
Objection, Your Honor. Hearsay.
Again, not offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I repeated to the officers, I refused to cooperate at this time at the advice of my attorney.
Okay. Did you call your publicist that night?
No.
I don't think she said on the.
Now,
I don't think
I'm
there was
going
anything
to
recorded
ask
about the
you
advice of
to
her attorney,
take a
was there?
look at some pictures, but before I get there, I want to just ask you a couple of questions leading up. What were you doing when the police officers arrived?
At that time, when after I learned that they were coming, my best friend took pictures of me. We took pictures of the house and my face.
After I learned that they were
I'm
coming.
going to, and did your best friend take any pictures while the officers were there?
We took pictures before and while they were there and after.
Okay.
We took pictures throughout.
Okay. So I'm going to take you now, Michelle, can you bring up Defendant's Exhibit 706? I think we can do the native on this one. Yes, thank you. Does this accurately depict the scene portrayed?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, I'd like to move the admission of Defendant 706.
No objection.
706 in evidence and published.
And would you please describe to the jury what this is a picture of?
This is my face after Johnny threw a phone at it.
Okay. I'm going to now, Michelle, ask you to pull up Defendant's 708.
Keep rubbing that eye.
And does this accurately depict the scene portrayed in this picture?
Yes, it does.
All right. And I also see that there is a little, what we call metadata item on there. How do you get that on a picture? How does that happen? Can you just describe briefly?
Objection, Your
Objection,
Honor.
she's not an
It's
expert.
Speculation, lack of
If
foundation.
you want to approach.
Yeah.
Before everybody gets excited about the metadata, it's likely they have some sort of agreement about the lack of metadata that's there. And again, like, metadata is useful, absolutely, but usually photos aren't authenticated by metadata. They're just authenticated by when did you take this picture? Did you take this picture? When did you take it? Does this accurately represent what was portrayed? Yes. I don't know why she's bringing up the metadata now, if they have some sort of agreement on it, but you know, we'll see. But getting bogged down on metadata can get really, really boring for a jury unless you have some real hammers as to what that some manipulation took place or something like that. And who knows if they've been able to get an expert to do that or not. But I don't think the metadata is coming in. Mr. Shado says, without a burner phone, Johnny's team are not responding via what? Yeah, that was so weird. She's like, I didn't have a phone and Johnny's team wasn't responding to me. Well, what do you mean you didn't have a phone and they weren't responding to you? Lancelot. So he yells
Can you
into the
please
phone.
explain how
never
this
mind.
particular item on here got onto the pictures?
It's a feature that was on iPhotos, you know, where your pictures are stored on your phone. Typically, you just push info.
And was that pushed in these instances?
I
of
pushed
these pictures?
info, and that's what came up.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of defendants 708.
Any objection to 708?
Your Honor, I would just ask the picture be redacted on hearsay grounds
Your Honor, I
for the metadata,
Okay, if you want
alleged
to.
metadata.
Okay.
So they're going to object to the metadata as hearsay because the metadata is an out-of-court statement made by something. That's interesting theory, I guess. We don't know what made the metadata or how reliable it is. You need an expert really to even explain metadata properly. You'd need an expert because you need to know how easily.
Amber, can you please describe for the jury what's portrayed here?
Things knocked over on the kitchen countertop, and I see pieces of broken glass on the countertop as well.
Amber, could you please describe to the jury what's depicted here?
This is the hallway leading leading up to the apartments.
Amber, please describe for the jury what's depicted here.
It's another photograph on the floor, not the wall.
Just describe for the jury what's depicted here.
It's one corner of the kitchen in Penthouse 3. Looks like one of the things that was knocked off of the kitchen island when Johnny left.
Amber, could you please describe to the jury what's depicted here?
That's my office. It's a corner of my office, and that is a box of like sentimental things from my childhood or things that are important to me. Keepsake box that has been dumped out. It looks like same thing, different angle.
Okay. Amber, please describe to the jury what's depicted here.
That's a picture of my friends and I when we were at that London house that Johnny punched. One of the, it looks like a Magnum bottle of wine that is
Gently placed
empty
on
or
the
spilled on
ground.
the floor.
Can you tell where that is located?
It looks like it would be Penthouse 5.
Amber, please tell the jury what's depicted here.
Wonder if one of the
This is,
reasons for the
more wine that Johnny was spilling as he was using the bottle he was holding as a bat of sorts.
Amber, please tell the jury what's depicted here.
More spilled wine on the floor. This looks like Penthouse 5.
And Amber, please just describe to the jury what's depicted here.
More spilled wine on the floor. Penthouse 3 it appears.
Now,
unless it's a white, was he
when the
pouring out
police
red and white?
officers were there, did either of them take you aside by yourself and talk with you?
Yes.
Which one or both?
The male officer I did not have much interaction with. The female officer said she needed to speak to me by myself, pulled me aside. We went into Penthouse 3, the main penthouse, to speak there because I had been in Penthouse 1, Raquel and Josh's apartment up until that moment.
Approximately how long were the police officers there?
I don't recall exactly, maybe I'd say less than half an hour. I really don't know exactly, but they weren't there very long at all.
Okay. Now, after the police officers left, what did you do?
We cleaned up a bit because there was broken glass and we had dogs. So we tried to clean up the mess, and especially the glass. And Josh, Rocky, Liz, and I, we kind of just cleaned up and eventually sat on the couch, and they just tried to comfort me.
When did you learn that a second set of officers were coming to the penthouse that night?
I think I learned about it when they were there, when they arrived.
Okay. And we've seen the body-worn video on that. Is there anything that you recall outside of what was reflected on Officer Gateland's body-worn video?
I couldn't see much of what was on that video. They didn't really seem to be that concerned and they didn't demand to do a walkthrough like the first set of officers had, and they left.
Did you provide them with Mr. Depp's name?
No way.
Did
No
they
way.
ask?
No.
Goodbye, Amber.